All right. Speaking of big films, the one I'm looking forward to later in the fall is Last Night in Soho. This is Edgar Wright's movie. Yeah, tell us a little about it.
Oh my God, that was my favorite narrative movie I saw. Just absolutely spectacular. I mean, it's one of those movies that just starts with just from the first images you see on screen of it's basically a character dancing. You're just like, oh, I think you got me here, you know. And the use of music is astounding in the movie. It's a very strangely structured movie. Let me just set it up a little. There's a character, the main character, who's played by Thomasin McKenzie. She was in Jojo Rabbit. She was great, and boy, she is great in this. She is trying to study fashion, to go off to London to study fashion, and she gets accepted to this fashion institute. She's been raised by her grandmother because her mother had mental problems and killed herself. And so we get the sense, and so she sees sort of visions of her mother in the mirror and things like that. So there's this question of, can she handle the big city or not? She's definitely still got some mental problems that she's kind of trying to hide. And so she, gets to the big city, starts studying fashion. And because she's raised by her grandmother, she has lots of old records from the 60s and stuff about, when London was such the place to be. And so that music is sort of throughout the film. And the big thing that happens to her when she gets there is she rents an apartment and from an older lady who's lived there for a long time. And in the apartment, she starts to, as she goes to sleep every night, she finds herself living the life of somebody, of a young lady from the 60s. And so in that time period, it's Anya Taylor-Joy who's the character. And so she's basically seeing life through her eyes. And she wants to be a singer and starts trying to live the life. And so every night when the main character goes to sleep, she's flashed back into the 60s and starts living her life. There's great musical numbers and all kinds of things that you get to see sort of life, the 60s London scene. And she has a character that's sort of her agent, played by Matt Smith, one of the doctors from Doctor Who. And he's great as well, but then things sort of start to go sideways for the character in the 60s. And then now it sort of starts to become a real chore for the main character. When she's going to sleep, she's seeing all kinds of really stuff that turns pretty horrific. So it sort of turns into, it seems like this musical crazy thing, fun thing about a character sort of turns into a sort of horror thriller. I won't give away anything else after that, but basically, our main character is sort of trying to solve some bad stuff that went down in the 60s through the information she's getting through this whole thing.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've seen the trailer and I still have no clue what.
Well, it gets way deeper, twistier, crazier than that. But I want to stop there so that I don't ruin anything. Yeah. But it's one of those things where there are certainly things in the movies where it's like dun dun dun. You get some new piece of information.
And it sounds like the music is very Edgar Wright in this.
Oh, the visuals the visuals together with the music and the acting, it all works together to make you just cannot help but have a smile on your face. And even when the sort of pieces start to come together, to be honest, I was ahead of at least one of the big reveals, but it didn't matter because it's just so well done as a movie that it's just it's pure cinema. It's the kind of thing that you can only really do in a movie in this way.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I can't wait to see it on my iPad.
No, man, that's where I was. They only showed it in the theaters there, and I'm kind of glad because they made me go see it in the theater, and that's where it's got to be seen. I just can't recommend enough seeing that movie in a theater. I mean, I will say the one thing that was a little disappointing about it is that it turned into something a little more standard towards the end. I mean, the setup is so crazy and weird that I hadn't quite seen a setup exactly like that before. But then once kind of now you've got to resolve.
Yeah. Once the revelations have been made.
Yeah. Now you've got to resolve.
It goes in the natural direction.
You kind of know how you're going to have to resolve this. But for the first hour and something of the movie, I had no idea where that movie was going. I was just like, this could turn into anything, and so I was, for the first hour plus, I thought this could be one of the greatest movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then it got fairly standard at the end, but still that first part is so strong.
Yeah.
And the last part is strong too. It's just that I now
it doesn't live up to the high expectations.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much that it doesn't live up. My expectations were the greatest of all time. I mean, okay, nothing could live up to that.
So your high expectations with the ending were too high and the movie didn't reach it.
the movie was great. So that's the real thing you should take away. But
yeah, I can't wait to see it. It's already on the posters of my movie theater. So
I mean, and to be honest, if something has to resolve into something that you can kind of wrap your head around at the end, or else you come away thinking that was just mysterious, and now I'm unsatisfied because it didn't resolve. So it's always got to resolve, and it did resolve but I think it did still resolve in a satisfying way. It's just that it became a little more standard thriller after a while, but that's okay, because standard thriller in the hands of Edgar Wright is still something I haven't seen done this way before. Still with the visuals and the characters, it just absolutely works.
All right.